We are back with developing news here in Washington. You are looking live at the Senate confirmation hearing for President Trump's pick to be the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That's General John Hyten right there. He just began delivering his opening statement, and in it, he's expected to address those allegations of sexual misconduct against him. New this morning now, Senator Elizabeth Warren is calling for the committee to let the senior military officer who made those accusations testify publicly. Colonel Catherine Splitstoser anonymously accused Hyten of misconduct back in April when he was first nominated. The Air Force investigated her claims and found there was insufficient evidence to charge the general or to recommend any administrative punishment. After testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee in a closed-door session last week, Colonel Splitstoser came forward publicly in an interview on Friday, saying to the New York Times, quote, "I realized I have a moral responsibility to come forward. I could not live with myself if this happens to someone else, and I didn't do anything to stop it." I'm joined now by NBC's national security and Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kube and Deborah Lee James, a former Air Force secretary and author of Aim High, Chart Your Course and Find Success. So, Courtney, I know you have one half an ear on the hearing that is happening right now, General Hyten delivering his opening statement as we speak. It is expected he will certainly face questions about this, although one notable name on the committee, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, I don't think will be there, right?
That's what we're hearing. She won't be there. It's also important to note that she was not there last week. So, you know, Colonel Splitstoser,
Courtney, I'm going to interrupt you only because General Hyten is talking about those allegations. Let's listen in for a brief moment.
Terrific.
And I'm also thankful to this committee for all the time you took individually and together in executive session to study and understand the facts. I really think the integrity of both the investigation and the nomination process are critical, not only for everybody involved, but for our nation's citizens as well. So I stand by the truth. And I thank the committee for its unwavering commitment and support to our national defense, as well as the men and women who serve. If confirmed, I look forward to working across the Department of Defense with our friends and allies, the interagency, members of Congress, to address an ever-widening spectrum of challenges confronting our nation. While we've not yet ceded our advantage, we are facing direct challenges across all domains, and particularly in areas of long-held superiority like space and cyberspace. We're in a position where we must
John Hyten speaking with members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Courtney, thank you for letting me interrupt you. I wanted to try to hear what the general had to say. And he thanked committee members for, as he said, listening and gathering the facts. We know they've had an opportunity to speak with the colonel as well.
That's right. So they met with her in a closed session, the Senate Armed Services, early last week. 2 days later, they met with General Hyten and also in a closed session to talk about these allegations. It's important to note that this is the first time we've actually heard General Hyten on the record, on camera, discuss these accusations of sexual assault. And right before we went to him, he in the video, he said that the allegations are completely false. There was another very dramatic moment right before General Hyten began speaking, and that was when the former Secretary of the Air Force, Heather Wilson, she just left the Pentagon a couple of months ago. She defended General Hyten, and she actually addressed the allegations, speaking directly to the colonel who made them, Kathy Splitstoser, and said, "I believe that she could be a woman who believes these allegations, and she may be wounded." And it was a very emotional moment where she was not only defending General Hyten, who, you know, Heather Wilson served in the Air Force and then became the senior-most civilian position in the Air Force. She not only defended General Hyten, but she showed empathy, and she spoke about the importance of listening to and recognizing the problem of military sexual assault. But all Heather Wilson ultimately said, you know, General Hyten is innocent of these charges, Hallie.
Deborah, we should point out here, and by the way, you know General Hyten.
I do.
To disclose to our viewers here. What do you make of the decision? So she testified, Colonel Splitstoser, privately, but not publicly. How do you see that decision?
The fact that she was willing to do so, requested to do so, but was denied the opportunity to do it publicly, I think it was a missed opportunity.
Why?
Because part of evaluating a person's worthiness and ability to take on a job like this, and part of the evidence in a matter such as an accusation of sexual assault, is credibility of the witnesses. And of course, the Senate Armed Services heard from the colonel, but the rest of the Senate won't have the opportunity to hear her directly, nor will the American public, if she does not testify publicly. So I do think that was a missed opportunity.
And there are some senators, Courtney, who are concerned about that, right?
That's right. Kirsten Gillibrand, who you mentioned, who we do not expect to be there. It's also important to note that I've spoken with people on the Senate Armed Services, and Senator Gillibrand was not at the closed session with General Hyten last week, where he had the opportunity to talk to them prior to his open testimony. Colonel Spletstoser, she testified in this closed session, and then she seems now willing to go on the record and on camera to talk about these allegations. What stands, as Secretary James just mentioned, I don't know that we've heard the last from her. It's still plausible that the Senate may call her into an open session, depending on what happens here today. Another thing that I would watch for today is if we hear from Senator McSally herself, a self-acknowledged victim of military sexual assault when she served in the military. I'm told by defense officials that she's actually going to come out in defense of General Hyten here today.
We are looking, by the way, Courtney, at video of, I believe, her in the audience today. She is in the room for that confirmation hearing, which is definitely a notable moment. One of the things she talked about, you're very familiar with the chain of command, about why she didn't report the allegations early until April, which is I was distraught. But who was I going to report it to? Secretary Mattis, really? She says, all I was trying to do was just survive and not have my life ruined. Does this, I want your reaction to that and your prediction on how this might affect General Hyten's confirmation moving forward, having any effect or maybe not.
Well, I think it has an effect in that people are pouring through thousands of pages of documentation and emails, and I do think the Senate Armed Services Committee is giving it a very, very thorough review. By the way, based on everything I have read, I do think it has been a thorough, impartial, and by-the-book review. But with that said, it's terribly important that people hear directly from witnesses and be able to weigh that credibility. And so, again, I think that is a missed opportunity. There are multiple ways that victims can report these things. They can do it anonymously. They can do it to the DOD IG. They can do it through directly the chain of command. You can do it in a way that will be fully investigated. You can do it in a way that you can just get medical care, and then you can turn it into a full investigation later. It's crucial. I know it's hard, but it is crucial that people and that we get the word out. Reporting early is the way to do it, while evidence may still exist and where the investigation can be conducted even more thoroughly.
Deborah Lee James, it is always a pleasure to have your perspective and for joining us here on set. Thank you. Courtney Kube, I know you're going to listen into the rest of that hearing. We'll see you later on MSNBC and tonight on NBC Nightly News. Court, thank you.